silent monastery where monks guard an engine made of human bone. The sound of grinding bone is the only thing breaking the absolute silence of this monastery. These monks aren't praying. They are tending to a skeletal engine that breathes life into a literal god of bone. One wrong noise could end it all, because this terrifying deity demands your total silence. I didn't believe the story when I first heard it. Most legends from isolated mountain regions are born from fear, superstition, or the need to explain something ordinary. But the old guide who told me about the silent monastery didn't sound like a man repeating folklore. He sounded like someone trying desperately to forget. His hands shook as he described it. A monastery hidden among frozen peaks where no bells rang, no chants echoed through stone halls, no prayers were spoken. The monks there had taken a vow beyond silence. They had surrendered speech entirely, because something beneath the monastery listened, and if it heard the wrong sound, people died. 3 months later, I found myself climbing those mountains. The journey took 4 days through narrow passes where icy winds screamed between cliffs like distant voices. Villages became scarce. Roads disappeared. Even wildlife seemed absent. The higher I climbed, the stranger the silence became. There were no birds, no insects, no animal calls, only wind, and occasionally something else, a faint grinding noise. A slow rhythmic sound that seemed impossibly distant. Crunch, pause, crunch, pause. Like gigantic bones rubbing together somewhere deep beneath the earth, the sound followed me for miles. By sunset on the 4th day, I finally saw the monastery. It stood atop a black ridge surrounded by cliffs and snowfields. Ancient stone walls rose from the mountain itself. Weathered towers watched the horizon like blind sentinels. At first glance it appeared abandoned. Then I noticed movement. Figures in gray robes, dozens of them. Every monk moved with deliberate precision. None spoke, none acknowledged one another. They communicated only through hand signals and brief nods. As I approached the gate, a monk emerged from the shadows. He was elderly, thin. His face looked worn by decades of hardship. When I greeted him, he didn't answer. Instead, he handed me a wooden slate. Written upon it were simple words: "Do not speak loudly." Below that, "Never scream." And beneath both warnings, "If the engine hears you, we cannot protect you." A cold sensation settled in my stomach. The monk led me inside. The monastery's interior felt wrong. Not haunted, not cursed, something far stranger. Every surface carried traces of obsessive maintenance. Stone floors polished smooth. Walls repaired countless times, doors reinforced with iron and strange carvings resembling skeletal spines. Yet despite this care, an odor lingered everywhere, a faint smell of dust, decay, and old marrow. The grinding sound was louder inside, still distant, still rhythmic, but undeniably present. Crunch, pause, crunch, pause, like the heartbeat of the mountain. The monks guided me to a small chamber where food and blankets awaited. Another slate rested upon the table. It contained only one sentence: "Tomorrow you will see why silence matters." That night sleep refused to come. The grinding continued endlessly, sometimes louder, sometimes softer, always present. Around midnight, I noticed something unsettling. The rhythm wasn't random. It resembled breathing, slow, mechanical, alive. I eventually drifted into uneasy sleep. Hours later, I woke to darkness. The grinding had stopped. For the first time since entering the mountains, absolute silence surrounded me. The sudden absence of sound felt unnatural, terrifying. Then somewhere far below, something inhaled. A deep sucking noise echoed through stone foundations. The entire room vibrated. I sat frozen. Another breath followed. Longer, closer. Then the grinding resumed. Crunch, pause. Crunch. Pause. I didn't sleep again. At dawn, the elderly monk returned. He motioned for me to follow. The journey downward took nearly an hour. Beneath the monastery existed an enormous network of tunnels carved directly into the mountain. The deeper we descended, the stronger the odor became. Dust, rot, old death. The air grew warmer. The grinding grew louder. Soon it became impossible to ignore. The sound reverberated through walls and bones alike. Eventually we reached a massive cavern, and there I saw the engine. Even now I struggle to describe it. No machine should have existed in that form. It towered over the cavern like a cathedral built from skeletons. Thousands upon thousands of bones formed gears, pistons, wheels, and rotating mechanisms. Human skulls lined enormous circular structures. Ribs interlocked like mechanical teeth. Femurs functioned as axles. Vertebrae formed chains that continuously moved through complex systems of pulleys and joints. The entire construct stretched nearly 80 feet high, and it was moving, grinding, turning, breathing. The source of the mountain's heartbeat. Monks surrounded the machine, hundreds of them, each performing maintenance, replacing bones, cleaning joints, adjusting mechanisms, working in total silence. I stared in disbelief. Then I noticed something even worse. The bones looked fresh, not ancient, not fossilized, recent. The elderly monk observed my expression. For the first time he spoke. His voice emerged as little more than a whisper. "The engine consumes itself." That single sentence chilled me. "The bones wear away." His eyes shifted toward the machine. "So new ones are needed." I wanted to ask where those bones came from. Something told me I already knew. The answer sat like ice inside my chest. The monk handed me another slate. Written upon it, "Watch the exhaust." I followed his gaze upward. Near the top of the engine, enormous vents protruded from the structure. At regular intervals they released clouds of gray dust. The dust drifted through the cavern like smoke. The monks bowed whenever it appeared, not out of worship, out of fear. Then the vibrations changed, the grinding rhythm accelerated, the entire machine trembled. Dust poured from the vents. The cavern darkened. Every monk immediately fell to their knees. The elderly monk grabbed my arm, forced me down beside him, and that's when I saw it. At first it looked like a shadow, a distortion within the dust. Then the dust began gathering, coalescing, forming shape. The cloud twisted into something massive, humanoid, towering, impossible. Bones emerged from swirling particles. Skulls fused together. Ribs layered across one another. Spines intertwined like roots. The thing continued growing until its head nearly touched the cavern ceiling. Its hollow eye sockets glowed with pale white light. The skeletal giant stood motionless above the engine, watching, breathing. Every exhale emerged through the machine's vents. Every inhale drew dust back into its body. The engine and the entity functioned together. One could not exist without the other. I felt terror unlike anything I had ever known, because despite its size, despite its monstrous appearance, the worst thing was its stillness. It moved almost not at all, as though conserving energy, waiting, listening. The monks remained perfectly silent. No one dared move, no one dared breathe loudly. The giant lowered its head, slowly, deliberately. Its gaze swept across the cavern, searching, hunting. For nearly 10 minutes nothing happened. Then one of the younger monks made a mistake, a tiny mistake, a dropped tool. The metals struck stone. The sound lasted less than a second. The reaction was immediate. The bone god's head snapped toward him. Every light inside its eye sockets ignited. The monk froze. Absolute terror overtook his face. The giant extended one skeletal arm. It moved with horrifying speed, faster than something that size should move. its fingers wrapped around the monk, lifting him effortlessly. The young man never screamed. He knew better. The giant opened its rib cage like a grotesque doorway and placed him inside. Then the ribs closed. The monk vanished, gone, consumed. The engine's grinding grew louder, as if feeding, as if satisfied. Nobody reacted. Nobody moved. The silence remained unbroken. Eventually the entity dissolved. Its body collapsed into drifting dust. The particles returned through the vents. The machine resumed its normal rhythm. Only then did the monk stand. Only then did anyone breathe normally. I realized what I had witnessed. The deity demanded silence because sound attracted its attention, and attention meant death. Later, the elderly monk explained more. The monastery was older than any surviving records. No one knew who built the engine. No one knew where the first bones originated. Generations of monks inherited responsibility for maintaining it, because centuries earlier the machine had stopped, and the world had paid the price. The story sounded impossible, until he showed me evidence. Deep within the monastery archives existed journals spanning hundreds of years. Each described the same event, the faltering, moments when the engine slowed, when the rhythm weakened, when silence alone no longer satisfied the deity. Entire villages vanished during those periods. Travelers disappeared. Animals migrated away. Mountainsides became littered with bones stripped completely clean. The monk showed me sketches drawn by witnesses. Cities covered in dust. Massive skeletal footprints crossing valleys. Nightmares recorded independently across generations. Different people, different centuries. The same descriptions, the same horror. The bone god searching for sustenance while the engine weakened. I wanted to dismiss it as mass hysteria, yet I had seen the creature myself, and that made denial impossible. The following evening I learned something worse. The engine was dying. Several major components had begun deteriorating. Replacement bones no longer lasted as long. The grinding rhythm had become inconsistent. Subtle at first, but noticeable. The monks worked constantly, day and night, without rest, without complaint, maintaining a machine older than memory, a machine holding something imprisoned, or perhaps feeding it. Nobody knew which. One elderly monk communicated through written notes. His hands trembled as he wrote, "The engine is not a prison." Then he scratched out the sentence, wrote another, "The engine is not food." He crossed that out too. Finally he wrote, "We still don't know." That uncertainty terrified me more than any answer. 3 nights later, disaster struck. I woke to alarms, not bells, not voices. Wooden blocks struck together in urgent rhythms. Monks rushed through hallways. The grinding sound had changed. It stumbled, skipped, recovered, then stumbled again. Crunch, pause, pause, crunch. The rhythm was breaking. I followed the monks underground. Panic hid behind their disciplined expressions. The engine shuddered violently. Several skeletal gears had fractured. Cracks spread through critical structures. Dust erupted from exhaust vents, far more than before. The cavern darkened beneath swirling gray clouds. The monks scrambled to repair damage, working desperately, silently. Then a sound echoed from above, a distant avalanche. The mountain trembled, one of the cavern supports collapsed, stone crashed into the machine. The impact shattered multiple mechanisms. The grinding stopped. Complete silence followed. The silence felt alive, predatory, waiting. Then came the breathing, deep, immense, hungry. The dust exploded outward. A storm of bone fragments filled the cavern, and the god emerged again. This time larger, far larger. Its head scraped the ceiling. Its limbs stretched impossibly long. Thousands of skulls shifted across its body, like living parasites. Its eyes burned bright enough to illuminate the cavern. The monks fell to their knees, not from reverence, from despair. The deity had awakened fully. The engine no longer restrained whatever process kept it dormant. The giant inhaled. The force nearly knocked people from their feet. Then it turned toward the tunnel leading upward, toward the outside world, toward humanity. The elderly monk looked at me. For the first time, I saw genuine fear in his eyes. Not fear of death, fear of failure. He shoved a slate into my hands. 3 words, leave now, run. But I didn't move, because something extraordinary happened. Several monks stepped forward, voluntarily. They carried bundles wrapped in cloth, human bones, hundreds of them. They fed them directly into broken sections of the engine. The machine groaned, fragments shifted, mechanisms struggled to engage. The deity paused, watching. The monks continued sacrificing their precious reserves. Years, perhaps decades, of collected material vanished into the machine. The grinding resumed weakly. Crunch, pause, crunch. The giant hesitated. The rhythm strengthened. More bones entered the engine. More movement returned. The deity's body began destabilizing. Dust peeled away from its limbs. The monks worked faster. Some even climbed directly onto moving structures, risking death. One slipped. The machine caught him, crushed him instantly. His remains disappeared into rotating mechanisms. And somehow, the engine grew stronger. The realization hit me like a hammer. The machine accepted all bones, living, dead, willing, unwilling. It simply consumed. The surviving monks understood this. Without hesitation, they continued feeding themselves into danger, because the alternative was worse. Much worse. The deity roared, not through sound, through vibration. The mountain shook violently. Cracks spread across cavern walls. Dust rained from above. Outside, avalanches thundered down distant slopes. The giant fought against whatever force the engine exerted. Its body flickered between solid bone and drifting particles. The struggle continued for hours. Then finally, the rhythm stabilized. Crunch, pause, crunch, pause. Steady, consistent. Alive, the deity froze. Its glowing eyes dimmed slowly, painfully. Its massive form collapsed. Dust drifted downward, returning to the exhaust vents, returning to the machine, returning to sleep. The crisis ended, at least for now. The cavern looked like a battlefield. Dozens of monks were dead. The engine remained damaged, but functional. Barely. When dawn arrived, I stood outside the monastery, watching sunlight touch distant peaks. The elderly monk joined me. His face seemed older than before, exhausted, defeated, yet determined. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Finally, he handed me one last slate. People must never find this place. I understood immediately. The world would react predictably. Governments, scientists, religious organizations, military forces. Everyone would want answers. Everyone would want access. Someone would inevitably interfere. And if the engine stopped again, I remembered the giant staring toward the outside world. I remembered its hunger, its patience, its immense silence. The monk wrote another message. Humanity thinks we guard the engine. He paused, then continued. Actually, the engine guards humanity. I left the monastery that morning. The journey down the mountain felt different. The grinding remained audible behind me, faint but constant. The heartbeat of something ancient, something terrible. Days later, I reached civilization. People asked about my expedition. I lied. I spoke of abandoned ruins, snowstorms, nothing unusual. No one would have believed the truth anyway. Years have passed since then. Yet some nights I still wake suddenly, listening, certain I can hear distant grinding. Crunch, pause, crunch, pause. Perhaps it's imagination, perhaps trauma, Or perhaps the rhythm truly echoes farther than anyone realizes, because there is one detail I never shared. As I descended the mountain, I looked back one final time. The monastery stood against the horizon, silent, motionless, ancient. But beyond it, high above the peaks, something moved inside the clouds. A shape too large to be mistaken for anything natural, a skeletal silhouette, watching, waiting, breathing, as though part of the bone god had remained outside the engine, as though the machine had not fully reclaimed it. And if that's true, if even a fraction of that entity still exists beyond the monastery walls, then the monks aren't maintaining an ancient machine. They're delaying a catastrophe every day, every hour, every heartbeat of grinding bone. Because somewhere atop those frozen mountains, hidden from maps and memory, a silent brotherhood continues feeding a skeletal engine made from human remains. And the only thing standing between humanity and the thing breathing through its exhaust vents is a rhythm that must never stop.